What if the force behind Jin BTS's most daring transformation wasn't a producer, a stylist, or an executive, but his own mother, quietly pulling the strings behind the scenes? It started with hesitation. It almost ended with rejection. When Jin first presented the bold, rockstar-inspired vision for his upcoming solo album Echo to Bigot Music's creative board, the room reportedly fell into stunned silence. The Jin they had known, the prince of soft elegance, the face of sincerity, was proposing something radically different. Black fur coats, shattered guitars, smudged eyeliner, monochromatic fury. A version of himself that didn't beg for love, but dared you to look deeper. Executives were torn. Some feared the public wouldn't understand. Others worried about tarnishing the pristine, carefully crafted image Jin had maintained for over a decade. The tension in the boardroom was palpable, and then, without warning, an envelope arrived. N.O. dramatic courier. No corporate email chain. Just a simple, handwritten letter, quietly placed on the desk of Bigot's creative director. The sender? Jin's mother. The letter wasn't long. It wasn't poetic. It didn't come with demands or legal threats. It was, instead, a raw, heartfelt reminder of who Jin really was. Beneath the labels, the fame, the suffocating expectations. One key excerpt reportedly shook the entire room. He is not trying to change. He is trying to return to the boy who sang freely into the mirror, long before the world told him who he had to be. If you truly love what he has become, you must trust the roots he came from. There were no dry eyes among those who read it. That moment, everything shifted. The board that once hesitated now rallied. The concept Jin envisioned was approved without further edits. The stylists who doubted whether the world was ready started sketching faster than ever. And Jin, unaware of the quiet battle fought in his name, walked into the next meeting greeted not with skepticism, but with reverence. Thus began the true birth of Echo, an album not only musically daring but emotionally seismic, and the world would soon feel its aftershocks. The album's concept photos, which broke the internet upon release on April 23, 2025, weren't just a stylistic pivot. They were a declaration of war against the molds Jin had long been trapped inside. Standing in the center of stormlit backdrops, clutching vintage microphones and battered guitars, Jin wasn't portraying a character. He was revealing one to what the fans didn't know, until now, was that every visual, every thread of leather and chain, every choice to embrace imperfection, had its origin in a single letter from a mother who refused to let the world silence her son's true self. But the story didn't end with music. The ripple effect of that letter tore through the world of fashion as violently as it did through music. When Gucci's creative team saw Jin's Echo concept photos, they reportedly scrapped half their planned designs for Milan Fashion Week. They didn't just invite Jin to walk their show. They built the entire theme around a story. The official new theme? Nocturne Rebellion, the sound before the silence. Gucci executives confirmed in a closed media briefing that Jin's emotional narrative, the journey from public image to private truth, inspired the final act of their runway show. Instead of a traditional finale, the lights would dim. The echoes of a piano, rumored to be played live by Jin himself, would fill the venue. And images, childhood drawings, family photos, echoes of an unseen mother's love, would flicker across the walls. It would be the first time in Milan Fashion Week history that a runway show ended with a tribute not to a brand, but to personal history, all because one mother, who never sought fame or spotlight, refused to stay silent. Armies worldwide have been left in tears by the revelation. Viral posts across X, TikTok, and Instagram flooded timelines with emotional reactions. She didn't just raise a global superstar, one fan wrote. She raised a man who knows how to fight for himself, without ever throwing a punch. Other fans noted how symbolic it felt that Jin's mother had stayed anonymous throughout this massive impact. She didn't attend Gucci rehearsals. She didn't pose for interviews. She didn't step onto the stage. And yet, she is everywhere in this comeback. The Echo era, with its raw vulnerability and rebellious beauty, is not just Jin's masterpiece. It is a living monument to the unseen forces that shape us long before the cameras start flashing. And Jin himself hasn't forgotten. In a quiet, unscheduled Weverse post, just hours after the concept photos shattered viewing records, Jin wrote a short, simple message. For the one who taught me to sing without fear. You were my first echo. The post garnered millions of likes within minutes, but Jin didn't elaborate. He didn't need to, because in every scream of a guitar string, in every glint of silver against black velvet, in every cracked note of Echo's songs, there's a message louder than any viral chart or fashion headline could ever scream. Sometimes, the world needs one voice to believe in you, before it's ready to listen to you. And for Jin BTS, that voice came not from a stylist or a CEO, it came from a mother. A simple letter, a silent revolution. And now, a legacy the world will never forget. What no one expected was how far Jin would go to honor the spirit behind Echo. As preparations for his Milan Fashion Week debut intensified, Jin insisted on one private request to Gucci's creative director, Matteo Blasi. "I don't just want to walk the runway. I want to tell a story. I want her story on the stage with me." Those words weren't met with confusion. They were met with a long, stunned silence, and then a quiet, almost reverent yes. Behind the dazzling chaos of fittings, lighting tests, choreography planning, a secret segment was being designed, away from the public eye. Jin's idea was heartbreakingly simple but devastatingly powerful, a memory lane in motion. Instead of merely closing the show in a dramatic, glittering outfit, Jin would step onto a darkened runway, and no music at first. Just the soft sound of breath, almost inaudible, projected behind him on massive screens would be real photos, grainy, unedited, black and white childhood snapshots. A boy with a gap-toothed smile. A birthday cake barely holding up its candles. A woman crouching beside him, laughing with her whole soul visible in the curve of her face, his mother. This wasn't a Gucci marketing stunt. This wasn't a brand activation. It was a son bringing the first person who ever believed in him onto one of the grandest stages the world had ever built. Sources inside Gucci whispered that during rehearsals, even the most hardened production designers were seen wiping their eyes discreetly. One model reportedly dropped character completely backstage and whispered, "I'm walking for my mother, too." It had already begun. The ripple Jin's mother started with her quiet letter months ago had evolved into a movement. This was no longer just fashion. It was a resurrection of memories everyone thought they'd buried under adulthood, expectations, and the brutal machinery of ambition. And Jin, he carried it all, calmly, silently, proudly. The night before the Milan show, Jin posted one photo to Weverse. Not a glamorous shot, not a teaser, just a close-up of his hand resting on the same letter his mother had sent to Bigot. No caption. No explanation. Just the proof that behind all the glitz, the fan still knew whose voice echoed the loudest in his heart. Meanwhile, global media scrambled to catch up. Vogue Italia named Jin the beating heart of Milan Fashion Week before it even begins. Billboard ran a feature titled, "When the Mic Drops, the Heart Speaks, Jin and the Reinvention of Stardom." The Guardian called his upcoming runway appearance the most emotionally charged catwalk event since Princess Diana's tribute dresses. But beyond headlines, something else was happening, a cultural awakening. Thousands of armies organized global watch parties, labeling them Echo Nights. But they weren't just parties. They became remembrance ceremonies, fans bringing photos of their own mothers, letters written to loved ones they had lost, songs they wished they had sung for someone who once told them, "You can." In Seoul, an impromptu vigil formed outside HYB's building, lit with candles spelling the word Echo. In Paris, graffiti artists sprayed murals of Jin holding a microphone in one hand and a letter in the other. In Tokyo, a flash mob sang ballads from Jin's earliest BTS days, mixing old lyrics with new chants. "Thank you for believing first." Even Bigot staff, once corporate and guarded, found themselves swept into the emotion. Some were spotted backstage wearing pins shaped like tiny envelopes, a silent tribute to the letter that had changed not just Jin's career, but their understanding of what art could be. And on the morning of the Milan show, Jin received a final gift, a private recording, a voicemail from his mother, sent secretly through Bigot connections, timed to arrive the moment he was stepping into his final fitting. Her voice was calm, steady. It cracked only once mid-sentence. "You were born with your own music, my son. Never be afraid to let the world hear it. I am already proud." Jin reportedly sat down in the fitting room, still in half makeup, the black leather jacket unbuttoned across his shoulders, and listened to the message 3 times in AROW. No tears. No brakton. Just a quiet no deed. As if promising her silently, "Tonight, you'll hear it," and so the world waited.